I now give the floor to Mr. Bathily.
Thank you, Madam President. Since I invited the 5 key Libyan stakeholders for a dialogue to resolve all contested issues pertaining to the electoral laws and the formation of a unified government, I have escalated my engagement with them and proposed ways to address concerns while maintaining the integrity of the dialogue initiative I originally proposed. Unfortunately, my attempts to address their concerns were met with stubborn resistance, unreasonable expectations, and indifference to the interests of the Libyan people. Their entrenched positions are incentivized by a divided regional and global landscape, perpetuating the status quo which may subject Libya and the region to further instability and insecurity. Since the end of 2022, the United Nations led efforts to help resolve Libya's political crisis through elections faced national as well as regional pushbacks, revealing an intentional defiance to engage in earnest and a tenacity to perpetually delay elections. Amidst this environment of entrenched positions and regional and global complexities, the challenges facing United Nations-led efforts in Libya have become increasingly pronounced, and the mission has endeavored to maintain its neutrality and integrity. Madam President, despite continuous and extensive engagement with the main institutional actors, their persistent positions are significantly impeding efforts to advance the political process. Mr. Takala and Mr. Debeba nominated their representative for the proposed dialogue, but both put preconditions which require the reopening of the electoral laws obtained by consensus after 8 months of negotiations by the 6+6 Interparliamentary Committee and published in the official gazette by the Speaker of the House of Representatives. Mr. Takala and Mr. Debeba also require the adoption of a new constitution as a prerequisite for the electoral process. Mr. Aguila Saleh continued to set the formation of a new government by the HOR as his priority, arguing that the HOR is the main legislative body that enjoys utmost legitimacy, contrary to other Libyan institutions. Other Libyans, however, recall that the HOR was elected in 2014, 10 years ago, and its terms of office has therefore elapsed as that of other current interim institutions. General Haftar conditions his participation either to the invitation of the HOR-backed government led by Osama Hamad or to the disinvitation of Mr. Debeba, i.e., the exclusion of both governments. In fact, the LNA is indisputably the decision-making authority on political, military, and security matters in eastern and southern Libya. The Hamad government is its executive wing. While UNSMIL and UN agencies, funds, and programs engage the HOR-backed government, especially on issues pertaining to humanitarian assistance and to the reconstruction on Derna, the administration is not, on its own, one of the key institutions whose buy-in is needed for a political settlement to enable elections. Extending a separate seat at the table to the HOR-backed government would effectively formalize the divisions in Libya. As for the government of national unity, formed as a result of an UNSMIL-facilitated process in the wake of the Berlin International Consensus in 2021, it has entrenched itself as a major player in the West, although it is increasingly challenged by growing rival forces. The extension of its role beyond the promised delivery of elections exposes its limits and prompts its opponent to question its legitimacy. Nevertheless, it remains the internationally recognized government of Libya in the current interim phase. For UNSMIL, the selection of the 5 parties is based on an objective assessment of the Libyan landscape. It is cognizant of both geographical and geopolitical realities and reflects the current configurations of forces on the ground. The rivalry among these 5 major players is at the heart of the problem of Libya. The dialogue proposal is a balanced way to an inclusive solution. The complexities were exacerbated by an apparent agreement between the President of the Presidential Council, Mr. Mohamed Al-Mnefi, the Speaker of HOR, Mr. Aguila Saleh, and the President of the High Council of State, Mr. Mohamed Takala, according to a joint statement following a trilateral meeting on 10th of March in Cairo, with which UNSMIL was not associated. My subsequent discussions with the leaders who participated in the Cairo meeting revealed diverging interpretations of and lack of details on its outcome. There is also lack of buy-in among those Libyan leaders who were not part of the meeting. Unilateral, parallel, and uncoordinated initiatives contribute to unnecessary complications and to the consolidation of the status quo. The unity of the international community under the convening role of the United Nations is key to solving the crisis in Libya. Madam President, preconditions put forward by Libyan leaders contradict their proclaimed intention to find a Libyan-led and Libyan-owned solution to the conflict. So far, they have not demonstrated their goodwill. Concerns regarding the weakening of the international consensus on Libya are growing within the general population, as their country has become the playground for fierce rivalry among regional and international actors motivated by geopolitical, political, and economic interests, as well as competition extending beyond Libya and related to its neighborhood. The renewed scramble for Libya, its position, and immense resources among internal and external players is rendering a solution ever elusive. Madam President, as part of my wider outreach, I traveled to Bani Walid on 4th of March in a first visit of an SRSG since 2012, as well as to Tarhuna and Jado on 4th and 8th of April, respectively, where I engaged with local communities, tribal leaders, and political activists of these marginalized Western cities. I also met in Tripoli with several delegations representing the South, given the region's historic challenges in political engagement, economic inclusion, and services provision. During these meetings, I listened to concerns about political and economic exclusion, social injustices, the plight of political prisoners, as well as aspirations for equal rights. I also emphasized the importance of a genuine national and rights-based reconciliation for a successful political process and urged the local population to increase their political activism through their representatives to generate the necessary social pressure in support of elections. With the same objective, I also encouraged the High National Elections Commission to press on the municipal elections which continue to be hindered by inadequate government support for this crucial process. I appeal once more to the Government of National Unity to allocate funds for elections in all municipalities with expired or expiring mandate in 2024. Madam President, the economic situation in Libya is becoming severely strained amidst warning from the Central Bank of Libya of an impending liquidity crisis. The temporary surcharge of up to 27% on official foreign currency exchange approved by Speaker Saleh on 14th of March, combined with the declining value of the Libyan dinar in the domestic parallel market and restricted access to foreign currencies, has noticeably fueled public anger as concerns are growing over rising prices for essential goods and services, including medical care. It is imperative for Libyan authorities to address not only the symptoms but also the root causes of persistent harmful economic and financial practices. These practices are affecting the entire country, the welfare of the general population, while enabling Libyan stakeholders to maintain the current status quo. I therefore urge Libyan authorities to promptly agree on a national budget and decisively address significant deficiencies in transparent, equitable, and accountable management of state resources for the benefit of all Libyans, including those in the marginalized area of the country. I will consult with the co-chairs of the Economic Working Group on how we can best support given the pressing nature of the situation. As the world observed International Women's Day on 8th of March, it is imperative to prioritize women's economic empowerment. Despite the significant potential for women to contribute to Libya's economy, various structural barriers impede their participation. I urge for intensified efforts to enable women full engagement in the economy, ensuring that both women, young people, contribute to the national prosperity. Madam President, the economic dimension of shifting alliances between institutional, political, and security actors represents a worrisome trend with a growing potential undermine peace and stability. This trend was especially conspicuous in western Libya, notably in the city of Tripoli, Misrata, Zawiya. Against this backdrop, the presence of armed actors and heavy weaponry in Libya capital is of strong concern, as it constitutes a significant threat to the safety of the civilian population. I urge all stakeholders to pursue a peaceful resolution to the growing tensions and avert any further escalation. In addition to Zawiya, which remains volatile, tensions escalated on 18th of March between armed elements of the Zuara local communities and the Ministry of Interior's security agencies over the control of the Ras Jedir border crossing to Tunisia. While it is legitimate for the government to assert control over Libya's borders, dialogue with local community is essential to address concerns and prevent the perception of pursuing factional interests. Moreover, the continued militarization of armed actors in all these regions and military maneuvers by the Libyan armed forces near the ceasefire line east of Sirte pose a risk to the ceasefire agreement. Any escalation of tensions in Libya would exacerbate instability not only in Chad, the Niger Republic, Sudan, but also across the wider region of the Sahel. Madam President, despite these worrying domestic trends, no violation of the ceasefire agreements was recorded. However, progress on implementing its outstanding provisions, particularly on the withdrawal of foreign fighters, foreign forces, and mercenaries, remain hindered by the political stalemate and instability in the southern neighboring countries of Libya, where many of the foreign fighters and mercenaries originate. UNSMIL has enhanced coordination with the minority monitoring subcommittees and liaison committees of Libya, Niger, Chad, and Sudan as per the 5+5 Joint Military Commission's request. A resulting joint training program is anticipated to be launched with this entity in May to boost capacity, trust, and coordination for the withdrawal process. Here again, the situation in the Sahel remains very worrisome with respect to this project. Madam President, I am deeply concerned about the rise in abductions, disappearances, arbitrary arrests in Libya, perpetrated by security forces with impunity in both eastern and southern and western regions, which undermine fundamental freedoms and instill fear among the citizens. As legislative reforms to protect civic space is crucial, I urge Libyan authorities to continue supporting the initiative led by the Special Rapporteur on freedom of assembly and association to uphold human rights obligations. I also remain deeply concerned about the dire situation of migrants and refugees in Libya who endure human rights violations throughout the migration process. The discovery of mass graves in southern Libya on 22nd of March, containing bodies of 65 migrants who died while being smuggled through the desert, is extremely distressing. While noting Libyan authority investigation into their death, I urged bolstered regional cooperation to ensure migrants' protection. Recent reports from Sabha revealed shocking treatment of migrants in arbitrary detention, underscoring the urgent need for action by Libyan authority to ease human sufferings. I welcome the recent high-level meeting of the African Union, European Union, and United Nations Task Force in Tripoli, highlighting Libya migration challenges with relevant ministers. Madam President, after the Brazzaville meeting of the African Union high-level panel on Libya and the subsequent AU summit, it was agreed that a national reconciliation conference would be held in Sirte this 28th of April. I am sorry to inform the Council that the conference was postponed to another date. Divisions among Libyan leaders manifested themselves once again on such a critical file. UNSMIL will continue to support the national reconciliation process, including on a new date, venue, agenda, and other preparation for this conference with the African Union. Madam President, with a deep sense of disappointment, it is disheartening to witness individuals in position of power putting their personal interests above the needs of their country. Throughout the country, good-willing Libyans among political parties, civil society organizations, women and youth, the community, the business sector, the military and security groups, as well as other components of the society, express their impatience to break the current stalemate and save their country from the dynamic of chaos and failure. The selfish resolve of current leaders to maintain the status quo through delaying tactics and maneuvers at the expense of the Libyan people must stop. Libyan leaders must reach a political settlement based on negotiations and compromise. We cannot allow the aspirations of 2.8 million of registered Libyan voters to be overshadowed by the narrow interests of a few. I call on the Council to heed their legitimate dream. Security Council members must therefore uphold their responsibility in words and deeds, individually and collectively, by demonstrating unity to compel Libyan and regional stakeholders to back UNSMIL's efforts to restore unity and legitimacy to Libyan institutions through a political dialogue. Peace and stability in Libya remain ever a sine qua non for the stability of the Sahel and the wider region. More than ever, the renewed and coordinated commitment among regional and international actors is imperative. I thank you.
I thank Mr. Bathily for his briefing. I now give